Unfiltered.
Broadcasting live from West Wichita in the KQAM studios. It's time for your weekend kickstart with Wichita's #1 conservative talk radio host. This is Kansas Talk with Andy Hoosier.
Yes, it is. What is up, my friends? Welcome into it. It is Kansas Talk, Wichita's Big Talker. KQAM 1480 on the AM dial, 99.7 HD4 on that FM side. If you want to listen to us in high definition, you're more than welcome to do so. Plus, our friends out in Garden City, KIUL, what's up? And KGYN, the 5-state Big Talker down in Guyman, Oklahoma. We're all over the place, man. Covering the entire southern half of Kansas and beyond. Plus, our video feed, which is not running today. And, of course, the podcast you can find after the broadcast as well. So great to have you. Programming note, we are not necessarily live. As you know, this is the big weekend Renaissance Festival. I am actually out there, but it is a whole brand new program for you, so you don't want to go anywhere because there's plenty to talk about, plenty of things to do. Welcome aboard. What's up? Happy Saturday morning to you on Kansas Talk. We are broadcasting right here in the Devon James Injury Lawyer Studios, and we are broadcasting on the Fizz Burgers and Bottles microphone. Fizz Burgers and Bottles, 37th and Rock Road. Go check them out online at fizzburgersandbottles.com, which, by the way, we did have our big remote there yesterday afternoon for the grand prize giveaway, finishing up our 12-week promotion of our headquarters of Donald Trump and our Trump giveaways each and every week. And congratulations to the winner of the big $600 valued gold-plated Trump watch that we finally gave away to wrap up the entire thing. What a promotion that was, and how fun that was to do that entire thing. So congratulations, and we'll do some more. We have some more promotions coming up around the corner. You're not going to want to miss it because we have a lot of goodies going on there as well. All right, welcome into it. We have a lot lined up for the next couple hours here on the show. Bottom of the hour, we will be talking about some of the state legislature for sure, but we will be sitting down with the mayor for the city of Wichita, Lily Wu, as we talk about the ethics complaints. Did you know 8 separate ethics complaints against Mayor Lily Wu because she refused to focus on social issues and identity politics? And when she refused to read nor sign the proclamation of the, what was it, Transgender Day of Awareness, that apparently that she's not allowed to do it. You are forced to address identity politics issues and make people super duper uber special for you. And that's what we're going to talk with her about, and so much more. So get ready for that at the bottom of the hour. As you know, though, this week has been one of interesting behavior. The media, Democrats losing their minds over the trade wars that were going on, the tariffs that were implemented from the Trump administration with last week's Liberation Day. And we saw all of the tariffs be suspended now for 90 days, except for the nation of China, with that increase of tariffs up to 125%. The trade war begins, and we'll see how that one fans all out. But what does that all mean for inflation? What does it mean for products in the stores? What does it mean for the agricultural community is where we start off the day today, as in studio with us to talk about some of that. He is the agricultural reporter, ag director, whatever you want to call him, from the Mid-America Ag Network, Sam Speck. You've heard him on the airwaves for KQAM before, as he's in studio to break down some of this and what it means from the agricultural perspective. Sam, ag director, ag marketing guy, what are you? That's with the Mid-America Ag Network. What's going on, brother?
All of the above. However you want to coin it. Yeah, ag director, news director, agricultural aficionado of the Mid-America Ag Network. Yeah, good to be back, of course, talking about kind of the landscape of the world. Oh, it has been a wild few weeks, in fact, because a lot of, what my job is kind of focusing on the movement that takes place on the Chicago Board of Trade, on the New York Stock Exchange, on our goods and services that are being traded, whether it's internationally or here domestically. So it's been very active, to say the least.
That it has. So specifically the agricultural sector, I know that was the major concern when we started doing all these tariffs right out of the gate because of imports and exports for a lot of our grains and food that we bring into the country, but also the exports that many of our ag producers were concerned about being able to actually get out there. Did that really happen the way they were expecting in a negative way, or are we getting back to somewhat normal now-ish?
Yes and no. I think the overall structure of what the Trump administration right now is trying to do will never not directly impact our farmers and ranchers.
Right.
I mean, immediately, within the day, within the week. I mean, it will impact our farmers and ranchers, which I disagree with. I much find some agreements with this administration and how they've gone about things. The bully tactics, I'm not too fond of that because there are a lot of people that are directly impacted by it and their livelihoods, their families, and we have to continue to try and grow and encourage more folks. If anything, there's another conversation for another day to have, but the amount and percentage of dwindling farms, farm size, family farms, we're going to get to a point where we just don't have anybody interested in actually sustaining this industry.
Right.
That's a backbone industry of this country. That's a better and a bigger conversation to have. But yes, there will never not be a day to where these markets, the fluctuation of the tariff doesn't hurt the farmer. I think, again, you need to look a little bit further to where hopefully within these international markets, we are leveling the playing field, like you mentioned. We have been taken advantage of, and we are a legitimate player in the international landscape of things. And look at without us there. Taiwan, Hong Kong, Japan markets, these large Southeast Asian markets, the European Union. Boy, they just tend to follow our trends, don't they? So when we crash, they crash. Huh?
Right.
Wouldn't it be in everybody's best interest to come to some sort of negotiating table? And I think that's what the Trump administration is trying to do, trying to prove a point, which unfortunately is at the risk of family farms and our producers and ranchers. So it's a yes and no kind of answer. The farmers will always be impacted by decisions like this. However, on the long term and scale of things, I think it is a leveling of the playing field, but you should be encouraged. I think we made a great nomination in our current USDA Ag Secretary in Brooke Rollins already on the year within the first 12 months, which is something that the Biden administration couldn't say for 4 years. She has 6 international trips made to try and expand our livestock, our grain, our soybean markets. She's trying to find different players. She doesn't want to just send you a check in the mail.
Right.
She wants you to open up a new market. So I think that's something to be encouraged about.
It really is. And now, shocker, I don't know why we haven't been working on this for a while now, but because of these tariffs, the renegotiation that Trump is doing, we're seeing almost a diversification of the markets as well. So where it's not all going to one place. China, for example, is such a major buyer of agricultural products for the U.S. Now with this trade war that we're going on with them, it almost allows us to open up the opportunity to diversify where we're sending our agricultural products. Australia, that hasn't been importing U.S. beef in a really long time, finally starting to open up the market for U.S. beef. It allows us to say we're not putting all of our eggs in one basket, so to speak, by only shipping the majority of our product to China, which I think we'll get back to, but we can also start sending it to other places as well.
I completely agree. The diversification, I think, is a strong tool. It's a healthy one, and it benefits everyone. I don't think that there's a clear winner in diversifying your markets like that, because at the end of the day, we're just trying to trade our goods and services, right? Like if we were just to simplify it down as easily as that, boy, my country is just an absolute desert. I can't seem to grow wheat, so I need to get wheat from somewhere. Where do I get it? Probably one of the best growing regions in the world.
Yeah.
But then, of course, there's a couple of other areas that grow wheat and they can compete. Maybe they have a little bit better price here, and there's always numbers that fluctuate. But diversification, I think, is a powerful tool and one that doesn't hurt anybody. And hopefully, and for me, I think getting away of being reliant on a industry or one in particular economy is a dangerous precedent to set. It really is. It's based off of their outcome that affects us. I would like a little bit more independence in that sector as well, and I think we're trying to find a nice little middle ground. The big problem is you can say a quote unquote ripping the Band-Aid off. I think this Trump administration is more like you left the wax and the wax strip on for about 15 seconds too long. It took everything out, and
That's
I
right.
mean they are quite literally doing a massive reset. And you know the sting that it takes. There's an initial sting that happens with it, but for the most part, I have been fairly pleased with the decisions that are taking place. Don't like how livelihoods are kind of being used as a negotiating tactic. That's a deeper conversation for a different day.
But for the long haul, it's in the better, like you said.
It is.
I mean, whenever any kind of reset happens, a restructuring of how we actually operate at all, we're going to see this kind of restructuring, and it's going to sting a little bit right out of the gate, but we're going to see what Donald Trump says the golden age coming up, which I'm optimistic about. China, for example, it was late Trump administration, part one, early Biden administration, when we did that agricultural 3-stage trade deal with With China, we got through like stage one. China never even completed their obligation of what they were going to buy. I'm hoping that maybe this reminds them who is in charge, and maybe they'll do another trade deal with us that's going to be bigger and better and actually follow through with something. That would be optimistic.
It would be beneficial for them and us to find some sort of way. We need to realize how big of players that we're dealing with here. On the global landscape, we are dealing with, if not number 1 and 2, within the top 5 of the two most impactful and influential countries that we have, economy-wise, dollar-wise, influence-wise. These are very, very impactful. So it would be, I think what a lot of people need to realize is when we got about a year and a half, 2 years into the first Trump administration, that was about as much time as he had to deal with trying to get over all these court things and this collusion and Russian and, man, what's the validity of the election?
Right.
And he finally got to work and he started really making some moves. And I think at that point is when we saw stuff like the USMCA, a restructuring of how trade takes place in North America, a restructuring of how trade takes place with China and our other international markets. But I think he realized that 4 years is not a very long time. So guess what? Within the first couple of months of him being in office, he is imposing his exact changes that he wants. He doesn't want to wait anymore.
Yep.
There's no more time that we have to let pass. If he wants to truly make an impact, I think that's what he's trying to do. So I encourage people to maybe be a little patient on that end. I hate to ask farmers and ranchers and our producers to be patient because that's your livelihood. That's unfair of me to ask of you of that. But at the end of the day, yes, I do agree with your overall assessment of in the long term, I think this is going to be a grand, just complete, a moment in U.S. history that I think we can look back and say, boy, that helped a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, for generations to come, absolutely. So it's going to be ignorant of China and the United States, both administrations, to not come to the negotiating table. And I think we saw that just recently in this last week because all of a sudden every other country on the planet didn't quite have to still face the tariffs, but guess there was still one. He's trying to prove a point. China.
That's
Andy,
right.
I'm telling you, he's trying to prove a point, and it would be ignorant of them both to not come to some sort of negotiating table.
It's really good news. We're talking with Sam Speck, Mid-America Ag Network, our ag director here. Let's shift it. You mentioned to the USDA. As you mentioned, Brooke Rollins rocking it on her front. We're already starting to see, like other agencies and departments right now, the cutting of certain workers. And I saw the announcement of them essentially dismantling their headquarters in D.C. and building different satellite locations for the USDA around the country. Shocker, Sam. It might be beneficial for the U.S. Department of Agriculture to have more offices around agricultural areas in the country. I can't believe we didn't think about this before.
Absolutely. I mean, realistically, and you and I can agree, and maybe there's some other folks out there listening, that maybe our policies might be different at the end of the day. But I believe the less hands that you've got on the system that's working, the better.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Certainly another example of ripping the Band-Aid off. They're going through kind of cleaning house. Absolutely. Did it ever need to be that big? There's so many arguments, so many discussions that you can have, but I don't think the USDA was exempt from getting a little bit of a fine-tooth comb.
Having Doge walk in there.
Just a little bit of a fine-tooth comb pulled through it. And like for me, it's like when somebody, it's like the Old Testament. It's just like, man, somebody in Washington, D.C. doesn't know what it's like in Dodge City, Kansas.
Right.
You're nowhere near me.
Yeah.
You don't know what it's like here in Wichita.
Exactly.
In Kansas, up in North Dakota, over in the Pacific Northwest, where you can only completely grow things differently. You're set to your own adversities. I would rather have the person making the decisions somebody that's regionally at least logical and is educated of their own region. And I see nothing wrong with that. Same thing with educators. Why is somebody in Washington, D.C. telling me how to build a curriculum for education in a particular area? I've got 5 kids in my school. You got 5,000.
Exactly.
There's a completely different curriculum that should be built, catered to the kids and catered to the region and the overall people and their constituents. I think there should be more power to the people and less in one individual area. So Hey, I've got no problem hearing that news at all.
No, it is exciting to see how we're kind of that reset button's hitting across the board in many different areas. So it's kind of cool to watch how that's going to happen. Last question for you is to wrap things up. But we're going into springtime. We're going into planting season. I know we're still going through drought-ish conditions, even though we did get some decent rain that past week. That was nice with that drizzle. We're still far away from actually replenishing our water supply, though, aren't we?
Oh, big time.
Yeah.
There are some certain areas, New Mexico, certainly Southwest Kansas is always in there, Oklahoma as well. But you look at the Missouri Valley. The Missouri Valley's not too bad. Overall, drought-wise, I think is going to impact the wheat market a little bit, like it usually does.
Sure.
Especially when we finally get into like full gestation of the overall crop itself, what happened, because a lot of it needs to be a perfect mixture of moisture and then dryness to be able to get this equipment into the field, get it out of there as quickly as possible before it creates bacteria, fungus, or gets burnt by the sun. I mean, There's 1,000 different factors that can go into place. Corn is king for 2025. That's what everybody's been saying in the quote-unquote prospective plantings reports that have been released. So looks like a lot of people have elected away from soybeans and have gone to corn this year. And for that, I think there are some areas that kind of have to deal with drought. But at the same time, I give schools like Iowa State, Kansas State, and Colorado State actually a lot of credit in their agricultural abilities to try and create varieties of soybeans, of corn, of wheat, to be resilient through drought. To quite literally, there's only one place that this is going to grow, and it's in Southwest Kansas.
Right.
And there's nowhere else that it makes sense for it to grow. So they're coming up with new varieties of it, and I would be encouraged for it. But that's the crazy thing about the markets that I have to look at. I can't tell you what the weather's going to be in about 3 days. I certainly can't tell you what it's going to be in 3 months.
That's right.
So, that's where you kind of have to buckle up, wait for it, and hope for the best. As of right now, I think we got a pretty decent wheat crop, a lot of it in the ground. Like I said, prospective plantings report is calling for more corn to be planted, elected over soybeans this year. Probably not a bad idea considering soybean prices are pretty much impacted by whatever China does. So I think another thing to be excited to is another big push for year-round E15, overall use of ethanol and trying to use every ounce of corn that we can.
Sure.
I mean, realistically, why put some of it to waste when you can utilize it in another place?
So many other areas, yeah.
So many other areas. So I think it's an encouraging time. But certainly if you were to just go on to, I don't know, any particular website that looks at the markets, you're going to see a lot of colors, Andy. It's going to be back and forth, uncertain. Traders are losing their minds.
It is a Christmas tree across the board.
Yes,
That's right.
it is.
We get to see all
Absolutely.
over. I love it. Sam Speck, Mid-America Ag Network. We always appreciate the update. My friend, we are going into an interesting season, so we'll do this again soon.
Absolutely. Anytime.
You bet. We'll do it again soon. That again, Sam Speck with the Mid-America Ag Network. You can hear him all throughout the week with his agricultural reports, and we always appreciate his breakdown on some of those issues. All right, got to take a break. We'll get your thoughts on some of these and more. We have Mayor Lily Wu right around the corner. Hour 2, Attorney General for the state of Kansas, Kris Kobach, and Congressman Tracy Mann. We sat down with him about a week ago talking about these tariffs and what they mean for the agricultural sector, plus farm bills and so much more. There is a lot to get to, a lot to talk about, and we will cover it all right here on the show. And we're looking forward to getting you started off for another weekend, a warm one, a hot one. Are you ready for it? Let global warming officially take control. It's Kansas Talk, Wichita's Big Talker, KQAM. Welcome back into it. It is Kansas Talk, Wichita's Big Talker, KQAM. Good Saturday morning to you as we move through the month of April. Can you believe it, man? Halfway through the month of April. I don't know where the time has gone. It has been absolutely insane. We work way too hard. It is way too chaotic. Too many things going on, and now we are already into spring season. So welcome aboard. Appreciate Sam Speck with the Mid-America Ag Network jumping on, giving us a breakdown of what those tariffs in the economy looks like with the ongoing trade battles, especially for the agricultural community. Hey, I want to tell you about my friends over at Napoleon Appliance Repair. As you know, they are the best when it comes to appliance repair in the area. They've been voted best of from the Wichita Eagle 3 years running now, which is awesome. And we always love what they do. If you have any of your appliances that may be acting up, now would be the time before it gets way too ridiculously hot out there for them to be fine-tuned or to be tuned up or to be fixed if there are any issues. It's Napoleon Appliance Repair. You can go and check them out. Give them a call, 316-409 1525, 316-409-1525. Also follow them on their social media as well at Napoleon Appliance Repair LLC. Go and check them out. Now would be the ideal time for you to go and see what they are all about. On the legislative front, as you know, we are finishing up today, actually, the official legislative session of 2025. This year has been very strange because normally we go into an extended session. We have a little bit more time. It gets drug out. And it was really a different type of beast this year. We were on track. We ended the session. And today is the final day of the sign and die. Usually the sign and die or the veto override session is only like a week. This has only been 2 days, or 3 days, Thursday, Friday, and into today before it's all said and done. And the wrapping up officially of legislative session in Kansas of 2025. That's kind of wild to me. Usually it takes just a little bit longer, but it is done. And the reason for it, we'll talk about a little bit later more in depth. The state budget, we did not have to wait for the governor's proposal of a state budget this year. We had our own budget committee in the legislature where they could get the ball rolling on day one and make sure that we were in good shape. So that's really cool. I'm glad that we did that. I think this is a process we need to see moving forward. We'll get the breakdown of that with our legislative leaders in the next couple weeks. So don't miss that one. But it was really neat to see how everything played out, and we'll get the full recap. What could we see with the final veto overrides in the state legislative session of this year? And Governor Kelly now essentially powerless. She has one more session before she is done as governor, and we can only say good riddance. We've been waiting for this time. Let's get ready for midterm elections in 2026. Lots more coming up here on Kansas Talk KQAM. Stay here.
It's Wichita's #1 conservative talk radio host. This is Kansas Talk with Andy Hoosier.
Yes, it is. Welcome back into it. It is Kansas Talk, Wichita's Big Talker, KQAM. So great to have you. Good Saturday morning, moving through, getting things up and going. If you are trying to wake up, then let's go, baby. It's going to be a fun weekend, although it will be a hot one nonetheless. Don't want to waste any time. Got a great guest on the line as we go right back to our...
Let's go to the Maximum Outdoor Equipment Hotline.
Hey, there we are. A lot of things going on in the city of Wichita, a lot of big changes, conversations, and we're going into budget system, budget conversations, budget cycle time as usual. So we had to bring her back on. It's been a while since we've chatted. The mayor for the great city of Wichita, Wichita Mayor Lily Wu. Lily, how are you, my friend?
Doing well. Good morning, Andy, and good morning to all your listeners.
Yeah, always good to chat with you. There is so much happening now. It's springtime, which means things are picking back up. I know you guys are working on budget issues for the city and all the other stuff, but obviously the big news that's been making the rounds the last couple of weeks, of course, has been the announcement of the city manager stepping down and leaving. That's leaving some conversation for what to do with the city next. And I want to get to that for just a moment, but talk about just the state of the city right now. You've been there for about a year or so. Yeah, obviously, you got your feet wet. There's been a lot of shenanigans that have gone on, but are things at least running smoothly now, or are we getting back into kind of an order of business for the city?
Yeah, so I had the opportunity to have my first State of the City address on March 16th, or 316 Day, as I'd like to call it. So if any of your listeners would like to see it, it's definitely on YouTube. Just Google Lily Wu, and I have it on YouTube right now. And at that State of the City address, I really talked about over the last year, we've faced some challenges, anything from the drought, which is still ongoing at this current moment. We're still in stage 2. And if folks don't know what that means, that basically means that there are some water restrictions. And so that started last year, and it's continuing now. Talked about other challenges, including the plane crash that happened earlier this year with the American Airlines flight. And then also talked about some of the opportunities for the city. As you know, we have a community-wide survey every year, and we gauge what the interest of our community is on specific topics. And for the last 2 years, it's been consistent. The number one issue people want us to focus on is on public safety. They want us to reduce crime. And so that's number one. Number two is they want us to take care of what we've got. That's really infrastructure, public works, but more specifically streets.
Yeah.
And then third, they want us to focus on being a good partner with private industry, whom are the creators of jobs. Because, you know what, local government, they can help solve some issues, but if you're relying on government to solve your problems, you're going to be very disappointed because that is not the very first place that you should look for solutions. Solutions come from community. They come from neighborhoods and families. And so the third thing really is about economic development, and that is jobs. And so that's another focus. And then last but not least, we've been hearing from this community, and they're telling us that they're seeing a lot more homelessness in our community, and they want us to do something about it. So this city council over the last year has invested just over $10 million on a solution of providing temporary emergency sheltering for men and women over the age of 18 so that there's a place for them to go to for, again, just the sheltering piece, but then they can connect to the different resources that are out in community. And even today, I was really encouraging people to go to the website United Way of the Plains because that is where you can see every single spring, summer, fall, winter, the different resources that are available. And it's called this one-pager, and it's a resource guide. And so you can see that there's so many nonprofits that are helping people with clothing, with food, with all various things that individuals might need as a safety net. And the place where we're wanting individuals facing homelessness to go to is this multi-agency center so that they can connect to those resources in one location. So again, really focusing our efforts on crime, streets, economic development, and homelessness. And so as we move forward with the year, you know that the budget season is really in full swing now. Yeah. The month of April, the city manager will be getting his reports from his 16 different departments, and they're going to tell the city manager what they'd like to see, and then he's going to craft a budget. But as you know, last year I was the only vote against the budget because I did not think that there were enough cuts in there. I've been hearing from community that you're still suffering from the high cost of whether it's rent or your food costs. And so you're asking government to also rein in on their spending. And so I did not feel comfortable voting yes for that budget. So I was the only dissenter against the budget. And one of the things I did ask from the manager was next year, I'd like to see two budgets. One budget that captures all of that full growth from property tax valuation, and another budget that only captures about a 3% increase or so, which would be basically cost of living adjustment or inflation, and then some of that new growth. So, of course, we all know that there would be some increases in budgets just based off of inflation alone. Sure. So I asked the city manager, please present two different budgets. So for the first time ever, the city of Wichita will provide two different budgets for the council to vote on, and I'm looking forward to that.
Lily, I hope you realize how wild it sounds in a good way, and that's why I'm so excited, and I love hearing every time we talk. It's so wild to hear someone in government say that you voted no because it still doesn't cut budgets enough, and the government is not the answer to solve their problems. It is such a foreign concept to hear people say that, and it's so encouraging because I remember when you were on the campaign trail, and we had you on the show, and we were talking about options, and homelessness is a perfect example of this, that the government's not going to solve the homelessness problem. It's going to be the private sector. It's going to be the nonprofit organizations, and how government can assist them is a talking point, but how to actually allow the private sector to solve these problems. And that's exactly what you guys have been working on. Are we moving forward better in that direction? Do we know why we're seeing still an increase of homelessness? Is it economic issues? Is it substance abuse issues? Is it mental health issues? Is it a combination of all of it? And instead of just putting the Band-Aid on to take care of the people that are homeless, how do we start working towards prevention aspects and making sure that we don't see as many homeless people right now?
You know, it is really a combination of a lot of things. Root causes, we do have a lot of individuals facing mental illness or mental challenges, as well as substance use and substance use challenges. So we do know that those are realities that many individuals who are homeless are facing. But there's also another segment that, again, I advocate for prevention first and foremost. And, you know, the best way for prevention is to start at the youngest level, reminding young people about financial responsibility, financial literacy, and never spending beyond your means. And those are concepts that my parents taught me. And to this day, I still carry them with me. And that's why I'm a fiscal conservative or a fiscal responsible, because of what my parents taught me. And so I think that when it comes to homelessness, there's not one reason an individual faces homelessness. It could be a combination of a lot of things. So what is the solution? Well, there's no silver bullet. And I'm going to be very realistic. Even the solutions that the government is trying to help with, including the multi-agency center, is not going to be that one solution. It will still require these nonprofits that are doing that work. One of the best nonprofits that I can think of working in that space is Union Rescue Mission, and that is a homeless shelter for men only. And what they do there is, yes, they provide sheltering, which is temporary, but then they try to get men to join a transitional program, either a 3-month program or a 1-year program. And if individuals have been homeless for a while, they need to reskill and upskill, including living on your own. And so that's what Union Rescue Mission does. They do a really good job on transitional housing. And so the multi-agency center that I'm talking about would connect people to those other resources like Union Rescue Mission and encourage individuals to get into these programs so that then they can get out of homelessness. So I really believe that it's going to require all of us being part of that solution. If you are helping Union Rescue Mission, please continue to do that. They're doing good work. And another piece of that is the faith-based community has a role to play as well. I'm so grateful that there are people who are Christians in our community or any other faith group that is wanting to provide lunches to people who are homeless. But instead of doing it at random locations, what I would love for them to do is to go and volunteer at the multi-agency center, which is at 9th and Main Street, so that there's one location where homeless individuals know where to get resources, instead of incentivizing people to go to all these different areas. That's not helping with changing people's lives. And we need to transform lives. And yes, prevention will be part of that, but we do have individuals already in homelessness, and we need to help them connect to those resources. So it's going to be government, nonprofits, the faith-based community, but even just neighbors being good neighbors. And I think that that's how you really create that system that helps individuals before they even become homeless. And that's being a good neighbor starting in your own block.
Yeah, exactly. No, amen to that. We're talking with Mayor Lily Wu here for the city of Wichita. Let's shift gears. You mentioned the budget real quick. Obviously, you guys are going into budget mode for the season, and you talked about advocating for 2 separate budgets. We are going to see, obviously, the natural inflation. Hopefully that inflation comes down nationwide, but overall, we can see things getting better, at least with a balanced budget. For the city, I know that we were looking at a shortfall years down the road in preparation. Are we still seeing that? And even with some of the cuts that we could potentially see with either budget option A or B, are we balanced? And with some of the investments that you guys have done in the city with hiring more law enforcement in the area, doing some pay raises for some staff across the city, and getting fully staffed in certain departments that have been short for a while, even with all of that, are we still on track to at least see a relatively balanced budget that's not overinflated, do you think?
Unfortunately, the budget deficit is still on the horizon, and that is really because we have not had these true conversations about what is the role of local government. And to me, the role of local government is public safety and public works, from police, fire, your streets, the infrastructure that you see, the water and the sewer system. These are part of what local government should be focusing their efforts on. Now, there are some niceties, and I like niceties too. I like the libraries, the parks, the cultural arts. But you've got to take care of the core services first.
Right.
And as you mentioned, when I first was campaigning 2 years ago, the number of individuals that were getting out of the police department was so much higher. And not only that, we weren't seeing as many people getting into the profession. Well, our current police chief has done such a great job with recruitment and retention. We are seeing better numbers, and I'm really grateful that the numbers of vacancies continues to dwindle down. And one of the reasons is that this council did vote for better pay for our police officers. And I think it is something that, again, we were putting money where our mouth is, and public safety is the number one thing that we need to focus on. So our officers are getting paid as one of the best places in the state of Kansas. And so that is helping with recruitment and retention. But at the same time, we have to think about the structural changes that we will need to have in government moving forward, because next year we are definitely having a budget deficit, and you've got to make decisions now so that you're in a better position next year and the year after. And so the goal of local government will always be to have a balanced budget. But when you already know that there's going to be a budget deficit on the horizon, you need to start making changes now and really rip that Band-Aid off now. And so we'll have tough conversations, and I'm really hoping, especially your listeners out there, be engaged. If there's an opportunity for a town hall and any of our council members or myself are asking people to come, please come. Please talk to us. Please remind us what you believe are the core services of local government and speak up.
Yeah.
I can't tell you enough how important it is for individuals to show up, come to city council meetings. They're every Tuesday at 9 a.m. And I want to see individuals out here speaking about the struggles that they face and what they want us as a local government to really put our effort on.
Yeah, that grassroots activism and actually be part of the system. I mean, local government has way more power. We can talk national politics all we want to, but change begins at the local front, and the grassroots campaigning, the grassroots activism is what really changes it. Have you seen a lot of activism in the community? Have you seen a lot more engaged people than maybe in previous years?
I have seen a lot more individuals coming to city council meetings, and again, that was one of the things that I campaigned on, about restoring trust in City Hall. And for me, that is better communication and transparency. And I encourage people, when those meetings are happening, I share it on my social medias. I talk about it. I do word of mouth marketing about it. And I'm encouraging more people to be part of that solution. And we want to hear from people. The reality, though, is not a lot of people show up. And so there's an opportunity for you. If you've ever thought about coming to city council, they're not scary at all. You just come, and when there's an opportunity for public engagement, because oftentimes every new business item definitely gets a public comment section. But then there's also 5 positions at the beginning of the meeting that are called public agenda, and anyone can talk to us about anything. I mean, we've had people use the 5 minutes to talk about a nonprofit in our community to raise awareness. We've had other individuals that have come in front of us to tell us their favorite scripture and why that should be a guiding force for us as we make community-wide decisions. We've also had other types of activism that has happened through public agenda. So I really encourage people to be able to come to our council meetings and speak up, because there is an opportunity for you to address your council.
Yeah, there is. And you were lucky. I almost showed up on the last city council meeting back on April 1st at the beginning of the month, because I was going to, I didn't want people to think I was crazy, but it was the perfect day for it. It was April Fool's Day, which April 1st, and I was going to show up and talk to the city council about being the first city in the nation to change back to the traditional calendar of having April 1st be the actual new year as opposed to January 1st, because of the 13 months and having April 1st being the new year of every single year. And I was going to pitch that idea, and it would have been perfect with the city council meeting falling on that day, but I didn't want to sound like the crazy guy, so I chose not to. But I say that's a perfect time to do it, I think.
Well, you're always welcome to come. And again, you will get up to 5 minutes, so you can talk about anything, including
That's right.
Your idea.
That's right. I'll pitch it to you guys next year. I love it. We're talking with Wichita City Council Mayor Lily Wu. Last question for you, and I appreciate your time. Let's talk about, obviously, the big news about the city manager leaving. The discussion now, you mentioned the structural changes of the city. Let's talk about the potential restructuring of the city and the city council, and even the position of the mayor, between the style of the mayor's powers we have now versus what we could see later on down the road. I know this has been a talking point for the city right now, between essentially like a weak mayor system compared to a strong mayor system. What's being discussed right now, and what direction do you think we're going right now as a city council?
Sure. So City Manager Bob Layton announced his retirement on April 2nd. So the day after the council meeting, he announced that he will be leaving after the end of the year. So his last day will be in December. And that really was to give us leeway also, and a lot of runway for us to hire the next city manager. It was 16 years ago that the city manager came into his position, and it's been more than 16 years since we've had an actual process to hire a city manager. So that was conversation number one. In order for us to move the ship forward, I asked for a an agenda item, which is the council member agenda, to let's discuss what are the next steps. So that actually will come before us next week on Tuesday about the possibility of hiring a consultant to help us with the process of hiring a city manager, because this would be a nationwide search. And as you know, this is a big position. This is a non-elected position, and this individual will be the manager for 3,000 employees. And in our form of government, a lot of folks maybe don't know, but we have something called a council manager form of government. And in this type of government, you elect the 7 individuals who oversee the city manager, who is not elected. And so our role as council people, including the mayor, because the mayor has no veto power and is one vote that counts equally to the other council members, our role is to be policy makers, but we're not the actual carriers and executors of the policy. The policy gets really implemented by the city manager through his 16 departments. So a lot of folks often ask, so does that mean the CEO of the city of Wichita is the city manager? And I say yes. So the city manager is the CEO, and myself as the mayor, I'm the board chair. I chair meetings, and my role is really to be the ambassador and connector to this community. So in our type of government system, I'm actually called a, quote, weak mayor, and it's because I have weak powers. In other words, I am exactly the same as a council member, even though I was elected by the entire city. So one of the things that was brought up by a media individual during my mayor's briefing last Thursday was, have you guys ever thought about changing your type of government? And I said, everything's on the table, because I think we should have more discussions. And when you don't even know what type of government you are in, you can't really talk about what you could envision. Right. And so really it was just a discussion about, let's talk about our form of government. And we had our meeting on Tuesday. And in that meeting, most of the council said they're happy the way things are, and that they'd like to just move forward with the way things are, which is a council manager form of government. In addition, they also said that they're interested in hiring a consultant. So again, I think the conversation about changing the government is not going to be on the table, but moving forward with the city manager, and one that looks very similar to the position that our current city manager holds, is what this council is in favor of. So next week on Tuesday, people have the opportunity to tell us whether they want us to hire a consulting firm to start moving forward in hiring a new city manager, or if they'd like to see something else. Because in what you were alluding to, what we call a strong mayor system, the city manager position would be changed to a city administrator, so a professional that still takes care of the 3,000 people. But in a strong mayor system, the mayor has more of those powers of being like a city manager as well. Sure. And so in a strong mayor system, you do have veto power as a mayor. But again, none of the council members really brought that up. So again, it was just a conversation that one of the reporters asked about, and I just said it is up for discussion, and no one wanted to talk about it, so we're moving on.
Yeah, well, I think it's worth a discussion to decide, hey, if we are in a position now where we could potentially see a change, what's going to be most effective, what's going to be efficient for the city, and now would be the perfect time to do so, as opposed to having a city manager and then trying to change things up at that time. So it's worth the conversation, and we'll see what the people say as well when they show up on Tuesday as that conversation continues, and see what happens thereafter. It is the mayor for the city of Wichita, Lily Wu. Lily, it's always a pleasure to chat with you, my friend. So much going on. I can only imagine as we go into summertime with more budget conversations, it will get busier. Let's get you back on and get into another update on that real soon.
Thank you, Andy. I'm going to invite everyone. Please come out to Open Streets ICT tomorrow, Sunday. It's over at WSU from noon to 5 o'clock. So it's a free opportunity to just have the street closed and enjoy being part of the community.
I love it. Mayor, we appreciate it very much. We'll get you back on and do another update again here real soon. Got to take a break here. Went really long on that one, so we're just going to go right to the top of the hour. Why? Because that's just what we do with so much more to talk about. Hour number 2 coming up right around the corner. It is Kansas Talk, Wichita's Big Talker, KQAM. Stay right here.
Truth Unfiltered.
Broadcasting live from West Wichita in the KQAM studios. It's time for your weekend kickstart with Wichita's #1 conservative talk radio host. This is Kansas Talk with Andy Hoosier.
Why, yes it is. What is up, my friends? Welcome into it. It is our number dose of the big show, Kansas Talk, Wichita's Big Talker, KQAM. Happy Saturday morning to you. It is a beautiful one. It is a hot one. Hello, global warming. You finally made it into our lives. We thank you so much for this. Look, we're in mid-April. If this is how hot it is in mid-April, I can only imagine what it's going to be in summertime. I'm just throwing it out there. I really hope that Donald Trump ends up buying Greenland relatively soon, because I will be the first one to move up there. I can't take the heat, man. It's way too much for me. So great to have you here on a Saturday. It is Kansas Talk, Wichita's Big Talker, KQAM, 1480 on that AM dial, 99.7 HD4 on that FM side of the aisle as well, plus our friends in Garden City. Welcome aboard. KGYN, the Big Talker, the 5-state Big Talker in Guyman, Oklahoma. That beautiful 50,000-watt blowtorch in that area covering 5 different states. We love you to death as well, covering really the entire southern half of Kansas and beyond. And it's great to have you with us today. Bottom of the hour, we have a great chat with Congressman Tracy Mann, big 1st District of Kansas. I know that we did that about a week ago, but it is great information, especially with the trade deals and the trade tariffs that we've had. What does it mean for the agricultural sector, including with the ongoing conversation with farm bills, the immigration, and so much more? We'll get that update here right around the corner. Until then, we are broadcasting right here in the Devon James Injury Lawyer Studios and broadcasting on the Fizz Burgers and Bottles microphone. Fizz Burgers and Bottles, 37th and Rock Road, online at fizzburgersandbottles.com. Great partners with us here on the program. They are, because of all the religious holidays, Easter holidays that we have, April, their burger of the month is the Impossible Burger. I will admit I've never had an Impossible Burger, but I'm looking forward to trying one for the first time, and it's for those that don't eat meat, maybe for the Easter holiday, for Lent celebrations, whatever it may be, so you can go and check that out. Plus, you can enjoy their jalapeno syrup shots that you can put in your food, or you can put in their sodas, more than 30 different glass-bottled sodas that are absolutely amazing. I love it. I cannot wait to have some more as well. We had some yesterday when we were out at the event with our great Trump giveaway. We'll have some more information on the recap of that and how that went a little bit later on as well. Welcome into the program. No, I don't want to waste any time. It is good to have this guy back on the program as we go to our...
Let's go to the Maximum Outdoor Equipment Hotline.
That's right. And as we see the legislative session wrap up for 2025, we obviously had some big news that came out. Get ready for the midterm elections, a constitutional amendment that will be on the ballot next year. And what does that mean? Plus all the other legal battles going on in the state of Kansas. And it has been a while since we've chatted with him, but really happy to have on our Attorney General for the great state of Kansas. Kicking off this hour right out of the gate, it is our Attorney General, Kris Kobach. Kris, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing great. Great to be with you again.
Yeah, always good to chat with you. First, I have to start off and ask you, we have not talked since the election in November, the mandate that was set at the federal level. When we talked last year, you were on a roll with filing lawsuit after lawsuit after lawsuit against the Biden administration to stop the ridiculousness of what they were doing. How does it feel to not have to worry about that aspect of things from your office now?
Well, things have changed pace. Yeah, in my first 2 years in office, which was the last 2 years of the Biden administration, we led 12 different lawsuits. So when a state leads, they do all the work, they argue it, and the other states sign on. And, that was, prior to that, Kansas wasn't leading any of them. Anyway, we led these 12, and the only state that tied us in number of suits where they were leading on the red team was Texas. So I feel pretty good about that. Texas has a Attorney General's office about 10 times the size of Kansas's, and we were punching in the same weight class. So feel pretty good about that. But yeah, things changed. Suddenly Trump got in the White House, and the Justice Department stopped taking outrageous positions and doing things in violation of the law. And we have not had to file a suit against the federal government since.
How nice is that? It feels like we can actually focus on normal things in the state of Kansas and not just have to stop whatever illegal activity that the federal government's doing. Let's bring it to the home front here, because the legislative session about ready to wrap up now. It's been a big one. There's been a lot of conversing, but you've been working very closely with the state legislature this year, and an opportunity that we've been waiting for a very long time in Kansas, reforming how we actually nominate the Supreme Court justices in the state. It is amazing to see this actually move forward, and now we get to see a new constitutional amendment on the ballot next year.
Yeah, it's a big one. The Kansas system of selecting justices, and many of your listeners may not even be aware of it because it's so below the radar screen. The current system is that a commission that nobody's heard of and is controlled by 5 lawyers who are selected only by lawyers. So I, as a lawyer, get an envelope every so often in the mail saying, here's your ballot. And this Judicial Selection Commission of the lawyers, by the lawyers, for the lawyers, has been selecting our justices, giving the judge the choices, giving the governor the choices of which justices to select. And, the people of Kansas have no say in it. The justices are not accountable to anyone. They have these so-called retention elections where they don't run against anyone. And as we all know, it's not a real election.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's been the status quo. It's produced a very activist state Supreme Court, one that's been overturned by the U.S. Supreme Court 87.5% of the time in the last 8 cases. And so it hasn't produced any of the things that it's back in 1958 when Kansas did this. It hasn't produced a system of higher merit or a better system. And indeed, it's produced what I think is a fairly politicized court, just politicized without any recourse. The people have no way of holding them accountable.
Yeah.
So anyway, we are now we have a constitutional amendment on the ballot to elect our Supreme Court justices, which is what 22 states do. That's the most common system among the 50 states. And, it just holds the courts accountable. If you have a runaway court or a justice who tries to legislate from the bench, which is improper under anyone's view of what a court's job is, although I think the left says it's improper but does it anyway, then the people of Kansas can elect somebody else in their place. And it gives opponents of justices an opportunity to say, hey, here's where this justice has messed up, and I can do better. And so anyway, I'm just delighted. I'm very hopeful that the people of Kansas will take back the power to elect their Supreme Court justices. We had it from statehood until 1958, almost a century. And I think there's a very good chance the people of Kansas will agree. It's time to give the people the voice and give the people the right to vote for their justice.
It's time to go back to that original state. Just out of curiosity, and I don't know if we even know this reason, but why did we switch it back in the 1950s to go to this style? What was their reasoning then to think that, like you said, a handful of judges or attorneys in the state would be able to make a sound decision on who was going to run our Supreme Court? That just seems very strange, and I don't know another state in the nation that does this same kind of process.
Well, there are other states. It's just that Kansas is the only one that gives control of the process to attorneys selected by other attorneys. So it's called the Missouri model, and that should have been our first clue that it was a mistake. It was in 1958. In 1957, there was a scandal of sorts. The governor, who was term limited, saw an open seat on the Kansas Supreme Court, and so he quickly resigned as governor before his term was over and had his lieutenant governor appoint him to the vacancy on the Supreme Court. And the people of Kansas and the press at the time said, hey, that seems a little bit crooked and a little bit shady. And so the progressives of the 1950s, and back then the term progressive meant something different. It meant people who think, experts in government and bureaucrats who are experts know best. They said, hey, let's create a system where lawyers pick these experts who are fellow lawyers, and these experts decide who the candidates are for the Supreme Court. And, in that era, it was, that progressive era, that was something that people would say, oh yeah, let's hand it over to the experts. But of course, it hasn't proven to be that. It's proven to be a system that just operates largely behind closed doors and has no accountability.
Yeah.
That's how we got here. It was called the triple play of 1957. And they made that constitutional amendment in 1958. But the interesting thing about it is they threw the baby out with the bathwater. The problem wasn't electing judges. The problem was that the Kansas Constitution back then didn't have a specified provision for what happens when there's a vacancy that is a fair one. It just said the governor gets to appoint the vacancy. Instead of saying, it should have said, and the vacancy shall be filled in the next election. But anyway, they got rid of our accountable, democratically elected justices, and moved to something that's been a real disaster for the state for the past 67 years.
Yeah, bit of an over-exaggeration back then to try and overcorrect a situation, it sounds like, which is pretty sad.
Yeah.
Now let's bring it up to this point. Obviously, going back to the standard that we had prior to this change in the 1950s makes sense, going back to an election. I have to ask the process on how this was discussed in the legislature, and with your input obviously involved this year as well, on the process of leading to this decision to go back to an election style as opposed to maybe like the federal style where the governor would nominate somebody, the Senate would do a confirmation hearing, we work with all the different branches of government, and then we do a confirmation vote. That way, I'm sure that was on the table this year, but it makes sense to do an election. But just out of curiosity, choosing that one over the federal style, was there conversation like that this year?
Yeah, there was. And there were two overwhelming reasons why popular election was preferred to the federal model. Number one, the federal model is manipulable. It can be easily manipulated by justices who want to see themselves replaced by somebody of the same politics, the same ideology. That's why we have seen virtually all of the retirements on the Kansas Supreme Court in recent decades occur during a Democrat governor's tenure in office. They don't retire when there's a Republican, and if there might be a Republican coming up, they retire early. And it's a double play.
Yeah.
You structure the retirement to occur when a Democrat's in office, so you keep the position in progressive liberal activist hands. And so the federal model is susceptible to that abuse, and we've seen that abuse in Kansas again and again. So that's one reason. The other reason is the people of Kansas don't want the federal model. We polled this issue, and you offer the people the choice. Do you want the status quo versus the federal model? They slightly prefer the federal model, 45 to 37%. But you offer them, would you prefer the status quo to the model of electing judges? Overwhelming.
Wow.
In that choice, 74% say we want to elect our justices. Only 20% want the status quo. So when you give the people of Kansas an opportunity to say which one they like better, and you describe the systems, they want to elect their justices. So that was the second reason why the legislature went in that direction.
That's really exciting. I was not aware that it was that popular, so that's really neat. And I can't wait to see the vote coming up next year on the midterm elections. We're talking with the Attorney General here for the state of Kansas, Kris Kobach. Let's shift gears. Let's talk about, I know early on in the Trump administration, right out of the gate within the first week or two, he locked down the mass deportations that we were going to see in the country, which we still continue to see. He locked down the southern border, which now we have the record low entries at the southern border by like 98% being cut off, which is really cool. Mm-hmm. I know here in Kansas, you've been working really closely with our FBI or KBI agencies and other law enforcement agencies to work with ICE and actually be able to keep criminals out of the state of Kansas. How is that program going so far, and what's been the response?
It's been going very well. So back in 1996, Congress created a program that said, or created a statute that said any time a state or local law enforcement agency wants to be deputized, wants to have their agents or their officers have ICE officer powers in addition to their normal state law enforcement powers, they can. And it's called a Section 287G agreement. And, this kind of lapsed a little bit during the Biden and Obama administrations. I was actually involved in the second Bush administration when we signed up the first 287G agreement with the state of Florida. Anyway, fast forward to today, President Trump is all in on enlisting state and local help. And really, that's the only way you can achieve the greatest deportation program in the nation's history is if you have state and local help, because the feds just don't have the manpower to do it alone.
Nor do we want them to.
So, yeah, right. And so KBI, under my direction, signed up and was one of the first two state agencies, the other one being Texas, to get 287G authority. And it doesn't happen immediately. There's a training process. There's 5 weeks of training that the KBI agents have to go through. That is not yet completed, but when it is, it will dramatically change our ability in Kansas to see the rapid apprehension and removal of illegal aliens, and in particular, of course, are the criminal illegal aliens who pose the greatest threat.
Sure. I know you guys have been working on trying to register or at least get an idea of what is in the state of Kansas, stopping the flow of fentanyl and other drugs and human trafficking and so on and so forth. Do we have people in mind ready to go for when the training is done and we do hit the ground running harder already in the state of Kansas? Is it going to be swift and effective from what you guys have been doing with the pre-planning?
Yeah, it is going to be swift and effective. We don't have, individuals already lined up because when ICE knows of a specific individual now under the Trump administration, they go after them.
Sure.
So for example, if they knew of an alien human trafficker who's also illegally in the country, ICE would already be on. They're not waiting for the KBI to get trained up for that. But what will happen when the KBI is trained up is if anytime there's a drug bust somewhere in the state of Kansas, whether it be KBI or a county sheriff or a local police department, and they discover that the drug traffickers are illegally in the country, which is often the case, or that some of them are illegally in the country, they can immediately call the KBI. KBI can verify the unlawful presence of those individuals and then can take custody of them on behalf of ICE. And that's the real benefit. So you don't have to, if ICE is, right now they're working very hard overtime, and if ICE doesn't have an agent immediately available, KBI can step in and say, okay, we will check this individual's status, and we will take custody of the individual and then bring him to whatever detention facility is required.
Sure. I love it. I love the process, and I think we're going to be on moving forward, we're going to be in a great spot for sure. Last couple of questions for you, and I appreciate your time as always, Kris. Let's shift it. I saw a media release just about a week or so ago about the wokeness is dying across the nation. Donald Trump signing executive orders to get rid of wokeness, to get rid of ESG, to get rid of DEI, which we're already starting to see companies that were forced into these programs with this mindset to operate as a business try to walk away from that. I know in Kansas, and thank God that you guys have been on the forefront trying to get the state to not invest in companies that have been part of this ESG movement, because I've said for a while, this is probably one of the most dangerous programs that we've seen in the nation, advocating for essentially a social credit score through the private sector. Are we seeing more companies move away from that? And is that changing how the state's actually investing its money again?
Yeah, it is. So it has completely changed the way the state has invested its money. I helped the legislators draft a bill that was passed in 2023 that said the state will not invest any of its accounts or the CAPERS retirement system in any companies that are ESG, DEI ESG companies that are, basically have this political agenda, and furthermore will not invest in any mutual funds that are exclusively ESG, and there were quite a few of them not too long ago. And so basically it takes our state funds out of the ESG directed investment, which is investment that's all about political preference. It's not about actually return on the investment and economic performance of the mutual funds. So yeah, that's by law, and that was done already. As Attorney General, I joined a letter co-authored with the Attorney General of Tennessee, pointing out to the Fortune 100 companies that in the wake of the Students for Fair Admission versus Harvard Supreme Court case, now having affirmative action based hiring is not permissible, or in admissions in the case of universities, or hiring in the case of companies is no longer constitutional. Is no longer consistent with the 14th Amendment. In the case of a company, there would of course have to be some state action there for the 14th Amendment to apply, but nevertheless, the Title VII does apply to private companies, Title VII of the Civil Rights Act, and as a result, those companies now have to recognize that they may be in violation of federal law, and that has produced results. A lot of companies have said, okay, we understand, and we are now going to treat people in a colorblind way. We're going to treat and select people based on their merits, not based on their skin color. And I know for some on the left, that's a radical idea. But for those of us who are rational and understand basic concepts of fairness, we applaud the fact that people should not be fired because of their skin color, and they should not be hired because of their skin color. They should not get paid more because of their skin color. We want a system where people are treated based on the content of their character, as the great Martin Luther King Jr. said.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, what a wild concept. Although I will say, I guess it works to a degree, right? I mean, Jasmine Crockett was able to get her seat as an attorney by going in and saying that she was a black woman and got that job, right? So I guess it works to some degree.
Yeah. Well, we're just trying one step at a time.
That's right. I love it. Attorney General for the state of Kansas, Kris Kobach, we always appreciate it, my friend. So much going on, and we're finally, it's almost a sigh of relief. We're moving in the right direction. Finally, we can actually start codifying these, making sure that we're in a good position moving for the long term. But we appreciate it. Keep up this fight, Kris. Let's get you back on and do it again real soon.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you.
You bet. A pleasure as always. It's Kansas Attorney General Kris Kobach. We appreciate his time. Get him back on the show again real soon. Let's take a break. We'll take your phone calls and do some more as we roll on here for a Saturday. It's Kansas Talk, Wichita's Big Talker, KQAM. Stay here. Welcome back into it. It is Kansas Talk, Wichita's Big Talker KQAM on a Saturday morning. Great to have you with us as usual. Kris Kobach, our Attorney General for the great state of Kansas. We appreciate him jumping on the program the last segment with us. We will get him on again real soon. Got to take a break. I know it's kind of a quick one. Went a bit long in that last segment. When we come back around the corner, we'll have our interview with Congressman Tracy Mann from the Big First District. We'll talk trade, we'll talk tariffs, and we'll get you set for what to look forward to moving forward. Next week, now that the state legislative session is wrapped up for 2025 officially, I am looking forward to seeing what's in store for us thereafter. So we'll have that either next week or the week after. We usually, as you know, do the big hoopla of the recap with both the Senate President and the Speaker of the House. So hopefully we can get Ty Masterson, Dan Hawkins on at the exact same time and do the full recap of what happened this year. A quick one, back to normal operations, regularly scheduled programming, so to speak, in the legislature. And what does that mean for us launching into an election season next year? Are Republicans in a good position for that? So that'll be a conversation coming up soon. But we'll do this couple more segments right around the corner. Last half hour on the home stretch for Kansas Talk KQAM. Stay here.
Back to Kansas Talk with Andy Hoosier on the Big Talker, KQAM.
Yes, it is on the home stretch here. What is up? Welcome into it. It is Kansas Talk, Wichita's Big Talker, KQAM on a Saturday, moving through the morning here. The weekend coming up with Michael Brown right around the corner on all of our great stations that we are on here across Kansas and beyond. So look forward to that conversation. He's always great. Michael Brown, based out of Denver, Colorado. Always great conversations there. Want to tell you about my friends over at Red State Spirits at redstatespirits.com. As you know, they have released their True American Vodka. They were in town a few weeks ago. They're based out of Missouri. They have a beautiful, really cool-looking bottle of Donald Trump, the fight, the blood pouring down, the American flag behind him. It is True American Vodka. They have some more products they're set to release as well. Here in the Wichita, Kansas area, you can find your True American Vodka at any of your Total Wines and More liquor stores. And you can also find it, if there's not one around your area, you can find them directly on their website and order right off of their website at redstatespirits.com. Again, redstatespirits.com. Go and see them. Order your True American Vodka. I had a bottle and I didn't want to open it, and I still have one that I haven't opened yet because it just looks so cool. But the product is really good. You don't want to just sit there and waste it. You want one for a shelf, or you want one to enjoy, or you get it, you enjoy the beverage, and then you fill it up with water again and then have it sit on your stand or display or whatever you do to actually showcase it, because it's really, really cool, but it tastes delicious as well. Please drink responsibly. Go to the website, redstatespirits.com, redstatespirits.com, or find it at any of your Total Wines and More liquor stores, at least in the Wichita area. Again, redstatespirits.com. Please drink responsibly. All right, let's get your phone calls here in just a little bit, but we did sit down about a week ago with Congressman Tracy Mann, Big First District of Kansas, and a lot has happened with trade deals, tariffs, the agricultural industry, and more. But what does that all mean when it comes to the immigration issue, when it comes to trade, the farm bills, and more? Congress has been working very diligently on all of that. We sat down with Congressman Tracy Mann to talk about it, and this is what he had to say.
Hey, I'm good. Appreciate you. Appreciate your friendship. Appreciate all that you're doing. A lot to talk about. Hey, big picture, exciting 7 days we've had. It's amazing to think the month before last, Joe Biden was still president of the United States, which is crazy to think about. But we're in a much better place. Have a lot of work to do as we get the train back on the tracks.
Yeah, it's mind-blowing. We were just talking a little bit about the first 2 months of the Trump administration, and it's not only been busy for the White House with the 300-plus executive orders and the announcements. We just went into Liberation Day this week as well with the new tariffs and new trade deals and negotiations. But you in Congress as well, you guys have been working nonstop just to keep up with the Trump administration. How does it feel for the first time really ever to see Washington, D.C. move as quickly as what it has been?
It's fantastic. I'm from the business world, but to see, us make some progress on the things we've been needing to do for years is great. When I look at the last election, Andy, President Trump ran on a lot of things, House Republicans as well. But really, if you're going to boil it down, it was to, one, secure the border, number one issue in the election. Number two, we need to get the economy back on track by reducing inflation. Then you do that by shrinking the size of the government. entered DOGE, stamping all this waste, fraud, and abuse, hundreds of billions of dollars. And number three, the president said he was going to use tariffs to renegotiate our trade relationships with the world. And promises made, promises kept. Credit President Trump for doing exactly what he said he's going to do. And that's really in essence, what we've seen the last 70 days out of the administration. Record low border numbers. They just released the border crossings for the month of March. Yep. Record low. We're down 96% from where it was under Joe Biden. And that's just leadership, right? I mean, Biden said for years that we needed Congress to act. Turns out, no, we need a new president that actually enforces the laws. and there we go. And America's better for it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I don't want to spend too terribly much time on these tariffs, but like you said, I mean, with the Liberation Day, this reset of the economy that we're seeing is unbelievable. The cutting of public sector jobs, getting people back into the private sector, cutting investments and grants and so on and so forth from the government for the private sector to pick that up and actually absorb it, for the tariffs that are happening with negotiation and trade deals that we're seeing. This is unbelievable to see the change already. And even though it's, shaky right now with the stock market, the fact that we're seeing this is going to be long-term benefits of the government getting out of the way and letting the private sector do what private sector things they do. And this is going to be huge moving forward.
It is. And it's common sense. And it's also America first. You get into this and realize we've been taken advantage of for far too long around the world. Credit President Trump for taking action here. But, it's a good thing. We have a lot of work to do. One of the reasons the last 7 days have been so busy is because of the absolute mess that President Biden left.
Yeah.
And there's so much work to do. A lot of it's been done. There's a lot left to do, though, as well, Andy.
Yeah, there really is. You mentioned the immigration stuff. I know you focused a lot of attention and time on that. You've been to the border and seeing a lot of the things going on down there. With record low people coming across the border now, Congressman, I thought we needed a bill from Congress to make that happen. I thought, according to Biden and Kamala Harris, we needed Congress to act on that because they were helpless. They couldn't do anything to try and slow down the border crossings going on. And yet, within 2 months of a Trump administration enforcing the law and passing executive orders, we're now down 98, 97%.
No, that's right. But here's what we need Congress to do, Andy. We need Congress to codify the actions that President Trump has taken to make sure that a future president can't come in and do what President Biden did. 16 million illegal crossings just because they didn't care and wanted to see it happen. We've got to take action legislatively as well to come behind the president and make sure that the damage that was done to the country never, ever happens again. And then we got to deal with the mess that we're left with, specifically, deporting violent felons, criminals that are in our country. That process is well underway, but we have a long way to go.
Yeah, absolutely. At the same time, I know you guys have been working on with the SAVE Act. It's been a big conversation. We're coming out of Women's History Month, Donald Trump signing executive orders to end DEI, and now we're focused on this immigration as well with the SAVE Act, making sure that wild concepts, Congressman, we have non-citizens that aren't voting in elections across the nation because many states, and ironically mostly deep blue states, have some sort of law where they don't have to show ID or anything to go and vote. Kind of weird to me. Where are we at with this conversation? And do you think that this is going to change a whole lot of election outcomes in the country?
Common sense. We passed the SAVE Act in the House last fall, September, October. So I think it was September. It never moved in the Senate. Now we're working to pass it. I think it's going to come up for vote next week. I will strongly support it. Remarkable to me that it looks like every Democrat is going to vote against the SAVE Act, which means every Democrat is saying they are okay with non-U.S. citizens voting in our elections. I mean, just let that sink in, Andy. It's just hard to wrap your brain around. A lot of lies, a lot of things circulating out there that just aren't true. There are those that would say it's already illegal to vote in the election if you're not a citizen. That's true, but what the SAVE Act does, it provides for enforcement. Remember, it's illegal to come into the country, if you're not permitted, but it happens 16 million times under Biden.
Right.
So we've got to make sure that we have the teeth, not just what the law says, but you have to have the enforcement teeth to make sure that only United States citizens are voting in our U.S. elections.
which is common sense. I mean, the one curriculum, Congressman, in the Constitution, the one stipulation that it says in order for you to vote is for you to be a U.S. citizen and for you to be abiding by the jurisdiction of the laws of the U.S. That's it. And then it's up to the states to decide how they're going to enforce that. But that's the one curriculum that you have that you're supposed to vote. And yet that's the one where Democrats, for whatever reason, try to balk and push against that as much as they can. It blows my mind that they're not in trouble for that.
It does, and you have to ask yourself why. Like why are they so against it? Why when Pelosi was the speaker, some really tough, dark days. Their number one bill, HR 1, House Resolution 1, was to federalize our elections.
Yeah.
Why? Because they wanted to weaken all of these federal, voting laws that protect and safeguard our elections. Why discrepancy among states and how they're implementing these things? But at the end of the day, passing the SAVE Act will help to make sure there's enforcement mechanisms so that only U.S. citizens, lo and behold, are voting in our elections, which is as American first, but more than that, it's just common sense as it gets around here.
Yeah, amen to that. We're talking with Congressman Tracy Mann, the big first district here in the state of Kansas. Let's shift gears a little bit, kind of back to the tariffs, but I really want to talk about the agricultural trade because they have been, quote unquote, concerned about some of the tariffs, the exports of meat. Trump has made the statement that we want to actually, sell our meat and our agricultural products here in the United States, along with working with the new health departments with RFK Jr., which has been phenomenal watching him as well work with local agricultural leaders, bring from the meat and to the farm, from the farm right to the table there locally, working with local schools across the nation. This seems like a great idea of, again, revitalizing the agricultural community, which I know you're heavily involved with, to actually bring the food from the farm to the table in your local community. Why didn't we do this before?
Well, realize first off, President Trump loves farmers.
Yeah.
Repeatedly said that first time I was in the Oval Office, Andy, very first thing he talked to me about when we were talking about Kansas, how much he loves farmers, appreciated them, expressed his support for agriculture for farmers from the State of the Union, which never happened under President Biden. Realize the situation that we're in. So when President Trump left office a little over 4 years ago, we had a $3.5 billion ag trade surplus, meaning we're exporting $3.5 billion more than what we're importing. Joe Biden and the Biden administration did nothing on the trade front. They just sat back, let us take advantage of. So, which means when Trump came into office 70 days ago, we have a $50 billion agriculture trade deficit.
Wow!
Which means we go from exporting $3.5 billion more than we are bringing in to we're bringing in $50 billion more in ag products than what we're sending out. So we have got to have American first ag trade policies and get to a level playing field with countries so we can continue to export our products. We know full well that when farmers can compete on a level playing field, we do it better than anybody.
Yep.
So let's level that playing field. That's exactly what President Trump's trying to do to get our ag economy to a better place for the long haul.
It's a really great point. I mean, it's wild to me that we would have such a deficit on egg because we produce so much and yet we're importing so much, it's wild. So so just correct me if I'm wrong here, Congressman, but are we exporting more of our own food than we are actually just consuming on our own here? Is that what's been going on?
No, we're at an ag trade deficit under President Biden. Under President Trump, we exported more than we imported.
Wow.
When he left office, we realized not a single trade deal for agriculture, not one in 4 years. Heck, the USTR, the U.S. Trade Representative's Office, they have an ag negotiator. Under Trump, it was a Kansan, actually got in Greg Dowd, who did the phase one of the China trade deal, did a great job. Biden didn't even fill that position for years. In his administration. I mean, it's just mind-blowing. And the point is, when you neglect our trade relationships and get taken advantage of, you wake up to trade deficits, which is why we import $50 billion of ag products more a year than we export.
Sure.
It makes absolutely no sense. And that's why Trump is working to get us to a better place.
Yeah, that's really good. We're talking with Congressman Tracy Mann, big first district here in Kansas. Last couple things for you, and I appreciate your time, is number one, on the agricultural side, the Farm Bill. I know that it's a couple years delayed, that you guys have extended it. What's the update on that one? And in tandem with that, I know the big conversation lately has been reconciliation with kind of codifying the Trump tax cuts. Is that involved in these conversations as well? and where are we at with reconciliation with the one big, beautiful bill that Trump's been pushing out?
Yep. Farm bill, it's a 5-year bill. I'm on the Ag Committee. I've been to the floor of the House 37, 38 times now, urging the rest of Congress to get serious about doing a 5-year farm bill. When I look at our ag economy in Kansas, around the country, livestock producers are doing well because cattle prices are high. Our farmers are really hurting with where inputs are, where commodity prices are. And so a farm bill is not going to solve that, but at least it provides certainty. It's the very, very least we can do. So I'm pushing very, very hard on that. In terms of reconciliation, the reconciliation is the name for the bill, and the bill's not technically named yet, but reconciliation is the process that we're going to roll up Trump's main legislative priorities: securing the border, returning to American energy dominance, shrinking the size of the federal government, and also preventing tax hikes. Because if Congress doesn't act, every Kansan is going to get a tax hike on January 1, and we absolutely should not be raising taxes on people. So that's the one big, beautiful bill being worked on fervently here in the House, and looking forward to seeing it move here before too long.
That's awesome. I love it. You guys are moving at record speed right now, which is really exciting to watch. It's a little wild. We're not used to it as a radio host trying to just cover what you guys are doing. I'm exhausted watching it as opposed to not even being part of it. So I give you guys kudos for what you're working on. It's such a breakneck speed. I love it. Congressman Tracy Mann, big first district in Kansas. Keep up this fight, my friend. There's a lot of stuff going on. Let's get you back on for another update soon.
Let's plan on Andy. Thanks for all you do. Have a great day.
That again, our sit down with Congressman Tracy Mann from the big first district of the great state of Kansas. Since then, as you know, this week they voted on multiple different issues, including their reconciliation bills on voter issues in Washington, D.C. and more. Democrats not happy. The screaming, the yelling, the temper tantrums continue, thinking that we're only cutting taxes for the rich, which isn't true. Kind of an old talking point. Doesn't really work out too well for them, but that's what they want to say. That's what they can say. It's kind of funny because the American people realize that that's not the case. And in fact, we're doing very well. And small business actually getting some representation in D.C., which is foreign. Got to take a break. One more segment around the corner to wrap things up for a Saturday. It's Kansas Talk, Wichita's Big Talker, KQAM. Stay right here. On the home stretch here, final segment of the program. Welcome back into it. It is Kansas Talk, Wichita's Big Talker, KQAM. It's too hot already. Yeah, it's just way too hot already. I am not looking forward to this. All right, Andy, got to prepare myself. Get ready for the crazy hot temperatures that we're about to see for the spring and summertime. Welcome back into it. By the way, as we recap the legislative session here in the state of Kansas, some of the bills, the weird thing was this year is that we did not see a lot of the media covering most of the legislative session. They were really just kind of quiet most of the time. And maybe it was because they were working too quickly. Maybe there just wasn't a lot going on, but that's really not the case. There's a lot that happened in the legislative session this year. We just apparently didn't hear a lot about it. One of them had tip 2 Cake News for reporting on this one, but one of the bills that will be officially taking place in the state of Kansas now is that you will be able to purchase fireworks all year long in the state. That's kind of awesome. Round of applause for that one. We finally we're getting freedom back. America, baby, and freedom. I know that there's always a conversation about fireworks, especially during 4th of July. In the city, do we shoot big ones off? Do we keep them small? Where do we get the big ones? When and where are you allowed to shoot them? And I always find it ironic that the holiday that you celebrate freedom with is the one that has some of the most restrictions on what you can do with fireworks. That's a little weird and crazy to me, but now you can start purchasing fireworks all year long, and I'm kind of okay with that. I'm very happy with the ability to buy fireworks anytime I want. Now, shooting them off is a little bit different story unless you're in the country and there's not much of a drought condition. But outside of that, you can purchase them now if you have suppliers that actually allow you to buy them somewhere around the state. So I guess that's good news. I'm okay with that. At the same time, property taxes didn't quite get where we wanted them to be, but it was a big talking point this year. Obviously, the big story of this year was the Supreme Court's constitutional amendment, being able to change it to an election process for our Supreme Court justices, which will, I think, have a major reflection on what the Supreme Court will look like moving forward. We have to vote yes, and I really hope that they make this bill look very easy, very simplified for the voters to understand exactly what it is. Unlike the Value Them Both bill that was kind of a disaster a few years ago, we need to make sure this bill is very simple, very easy, and that we know how to vote on this one in the midterms for 2026. Obviously, we'll focus a lot of time and attention on that. Also, real quickly, is just, and I know we're about ready to leave because we're almost out of time already, but just a little teaser for you. As you know, being now on the board for the state Republican Party, we are already preparing and gearing up for election season next year, especially for the governor's race, when there is tentatively going to be 11, let me repeat that, 11 Republican gubernatorial candidates that may be throwing their hat in the ring. Debates will be starting in essentially January, February, early of next year. Yours truly, has been tasked with organizing said debates for the statewide sanctioned governor's debates for the Republican side. So we'll have more information on that as things go along. Until then, we're back at it again next weekend. Come say hi to us out at Renaissance Festival, Sedgwick County Park. That'll be a lot of fun. I'll be out there all weekend long. Until then, everybody enjoy the weekend. Back at it for Kansas Talk next Saturday. It's Wichita's Big Talker, KQAM. We'll see you on the radio. Bye.